Sergei Viktorovich, how do Western sanctions affect Russia's ability to expand its influence in Africa, especially in Sudan? Well, Western sanctions in the literal sense, in the sense of today's actions, they do not help anyone in the world to develop trade and economic ties. And they harm those countries that impose these sanctions. Look at how experts are now commenting on President Trump's decision to introduce 25% duties on steel and aluminum from all countries that supply these goods to the United States. It has already been calculated that this will have a significantly negative impact on the economy of the country itself, which resorts to these measures. The same can be said about the sanctions that the European Union proudly announces against Russia. They are already preparing the 16th package, and the economic results are disastrous. The cost of Russian gas and other energy resources, which for many decades, thanks to their availability, provided economic growth, well, first of all, for Germany, other leaders of the European Union, but also for the whole of the so-called United Europe, has increased sharply. As for the impact of sanctions on our partnership with African countries, the first conclusion is that sanctions show the unreliability of those who introduce them and the readiness of those who introduce these sanctions to undermine all the principles of globalization that they once promoted. This is fair competition, the presumption of innocence, the inviolability of property, the free play of market forces, and so on. All this has been crossed out by them overnight. And, of course, we are looking for, and we find in most cases opportunities to continue our mutually beneficial cooperation with the countries of Africa and other continents, without depending on these criminal, unilateral, illegitimate actions of the collective West. And once again I will say that there are ways to resist, and they are quite effective. But in the longer term, of course, this raises fundamental questions about how to further develop the global economy with the West. Or maybe it is better to do it without them. At a minimum, we need to have safety nets for work, both in terms of banking operations and in terms of logistics, insurance, and so on. Since the unreliability of this group of countries in maintaining the global economic system that they themselves have been creating for many decades is already obvious to everyone. It is unlikely that any new currencies will appear in their classical sense, but digital currencies will certainly gain weight and, of course, supply chains and banking chains that will not be vulnerable will gain weight. So, in practical terms, we find opportunities to expand trade with our African friends. It continues to grow. And the same with investments. And in strategic terms, I see such trends in the global economy. Globalization, which the West advised and even imposed on everyone, has been destroyed by its own hands. Thank you. And the second question, please allow me to ask the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Sudan in Arabic. Mr. Minister, how does the current political and security situation in Sudan affect international relations? And what efforts are you making to attract international assistance? I can tell you that now in Sudan, the army has seized the initiative in the war for the honor of our people and state, as we call it.
Нынешняя ситуация приведет к тому, что
The current situation will lead to Sudan strengthening its position,
укрепить свои позиции, в том числе
including in the framework of contacts at the international level.
это развитие ситуации
This development of the situation will allow us to clarify for everyone what is really happening in Sudan,
в том числе
including through contacts with the Russian Federation.
мы в ходе нашей встречи
During our meeting, we were convinced that we were heard, we were understood, we were able to convey our position.
это также касается и ряда других,
This also applies to a number of other countries,
таких как
such as Saudi Arabia, Egypt,
Египет,
some African countries. We are in contact with them and working with them.
Но есть и страны, которые заняли
But there are also countries
мятежников.
that have taken the side of the rebels, those individuals who harm our country.
Мы будем работать и с ними, пытаться
We will work with them. We will try to find mutual understanding, including with them, in order to resolve our intra-Sudanese problems.
Наша цель — сохранить суданскую государственность,
Our goal is to preserve Sudanese statehood and its sovereignty,
будущее,
and to ensure the future of our country.
и мы будем выстраивать
And we will arrange relations with everyone based on these principles. Hello, Margarita Vasilieva, Pass Agency. The first question is for Sergei Viktorovich. The Russian side released American citizen Mark Fogel. Please tell me, under what conditions was this done? And what did Moscow get as part of the deal with Washington? This is such a simple question. As you understand, diplomatic and other contacts, in general, like silence. Over the past few weeks, many questions have been asked at various levels, including to the presidential press secretary Dmitry Peskov. And he answered, what could be answered? That contacts exist. They continue. But our American colleagues decided to announce the results. We still have a different approach to the agreements that are reached. But this is a product of one of the channels through which these contacts are carried out. Here I simply want to emphasize once again that for effective diplomacy we prefer to observe confidentiality agreements. And the second question is for the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Sudan. Please tell me, what is the current status of the agreement on the Russian naval base in Sudan? Are there any remaining obstacles to implementing the agreements?
Мы по этому вопросу достигли.
We have reached an understanding on this issue. So this question is quite simple. I have nothing to add.
Мы согласились, договорились.
We have agreed on everything. Good afternoon. My name is Kaysab Mohammed, RT Arabic correspondent, Sergei Viktorovich. The world is awaiting a possible meeting between President Putin and President Trump.
Как вы считаете, может ли эта встреча помочь улучшению
Do you think this meeting can help improve relations between the two countries
привести к соглашению?
and also lead to an agreement on resolving the Ukrainian crisis? Thank you. Do you think that the whole world is waiting for this? I don't think the whole world is waiting for this. There are those who believe that any contacts between Moscow and Washington infringe on their interests. Europe has already begun to declare through the mouth of, what is her name, Kaja Kallas, I think, who replaced Josep Borrell, that without Europe nothing at all can be discussed. But they apparently felt too. what place in the world hierarchy they had lowered themselves. But it will not be easy for them to get out of there. And as for the direct question about contacts, President Trump has repeatedly stated that he is ready and wants to call by phone, and he is also ready to meet in person. President Putin, when asked about his reaction to such statements by the American leader, said that he was also ready for this. You yourself understand that everything will be decided directly by the presidents. And I have no doubt that the relevant information will be provided.